Hi there, my name is Adriana Villegas, and I'm going to go over the special education teacher roles and responsibilities as far as my vision, my personal vision, and my ethical values, and describing how I plan on deepening my understanding for students with exceptionalities. So let's get to the roles and responsibilities. I'm going to just briefly go over this and kind of explain it. So the first roles in supporting learning: adapt curriculum using differentiation and modification techniques, conduct assessments, make content accessible and comprehensible to all students. Excuse my typo. And then guide general education teachers in fostering a positive and supportive atmosphere where all students feel valued. So when we guide general education teachers, we're also teaching them how to adapt curriculum by using differentiation modification techniques. What that means is if there's a modification of like reduced work in an IEP, so like one general education student might get 20 questions on a test, and a student with an IEP for reduced work will probably only get 10 questions, because within those 10 questions, that student should be able to demonstrate their learning. And every now and then we have to conduct assessments so we can check their, check progress, monitor their progress and learning. That way, if we need to change things around, we can do that. I have noticed that when you have a class that's co-taught with a general education teacher and a special education teacher, the students they thrive a little bit better. That's from personal experience, because there's going to be a lot of kids, not a lot, but there's going to be some students with IEPs, and that general education teacher might be unfamiliar how to differentiate their lessons for each type of learner. So that comes in handy when you have two teachers to support the whole class. And then differentiation, that's another term for visuals, videos, pictures, sentence frames. When students have a hard time putting a sentence together, you provide sentence frames. Our legal responsibilities: make sure students are receiving educational services, ensure students are receiving accommodations and modifications, and then develop and initiate the IEP. So to develop the IEP, we need to collaborate with the parents, the special education teacher, the general education teacher, and even the psychologist that sometimes, to provide the testing that they've gone through, what we came up with for accommodations and modifications. And then if a parent feels maybe another modification might be better suit the child as well, then we might implement that into the IEP and then initiate it. And that way we can ensure that student is receiving those accommodations to support their learning. And some of the accommodations could be, speech to text, or use of notes on tests. Those are just some of the ones. Ethical responsibilities: we need to uphold laws and regulations. We need to maintain professionalism, identify and take appropriate action to resolve conflicts, commit to ongoing professional learning, protect students from any harm, and respect students, colleagues, families, and staff in the school community, which I already do. I do respect students and colleagues and their families. A lot of times the family are really nice when you have a meeting with them. Uphold laws like the IDEA law, or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which guarantees that students or children with disabilities get free and appropriate public education. And so to commit to ongoing professional learning. So we know laws change. We know a lot of things, learning changes. We've gone from books and papers and pencil to using Chromebooks and technology. So learning those new strategies to teach students and keep them engaged is very important. Collaborative responsibilities: collaborate with general education teachers, paraeducators, and staff to support students' learning. Collaborate with parents, families, to support student learning and determine services needed. I mentioned that when we have to develop the IEPs, I didn't mention the paraeducators because there are a lot of special education teachers that have a paraeducator, and they're there to help support the students. If the teacher's working with one, you have a para to help another one or others. And that's good for supporting their learning. And advocacy responsibilities: advocate for adequate resources, make sure our resources are working. We have paper, we have comprehension books, we have markers, pencils, everything that the students need to learn. Advocate for equitable educational opportunities for all students, and advocate for policies and laws that benefit students and families within the school. So part of my job is to learn all these policies and laws for special education, and that's one way to ensure that these students are receiving equitable educational opportunities, and that will benefit them for their learning. So now that I've gone through all that, I'm going to talk about how I plan my personal vision for learning these needs. So I am a paraeducator, so I have some experience in the special education classroom. I've done student teaching for second grade before, and I can tell you the differentiation to teach second grade needs to be there, because second graders, their attention span is very short. So you need to use videos, you need to use even songs. I use songs in some of my lessons, and it got them engaged. But you need to keep it going, and same thing, sentence frames for some of those students. And that's one way to that I plan on learning, is through my student teaching, and then collaborating with other special education teachers. Not my mentor teacher, not just my mentor teacher, but other special education teachers. And I know quite a few that aren't even at the same school district. So I think it'll be really beneficial, as well as trainings. Some school districts provide training, and I'd like to do that too. I have books on autism and ADHD. I'd like to get more on other learning disabilities, to see how I can help them. I want to learn how they think, basically how their mind works, so I know what kind of strategies I can use. And then, of course, ethical responsibilities. We mentioned that. Maintain professionalism. Always have to be professional. Get to know your students, how they learn. Like I did with second grade, students loved to play video games. One of them was Roblox. So with a math lesson, I would use, when they were learning shapes, I would use Roblox as an example to keep them engaged. And that's one way, getting to know your students, but on a professional level. Like I'm not going to befriend them on Facebook or Instagram, whatever. I can't do that. It's not right. So yeah, and making sure I uphold those laws. Excuse me. Excuse me. And then to deepen my understanding for students with exceptionalities, like I said, I plan on, any books that would be helpful. I'm going to look at the ratings to see if it is helpful. Any trainings, getting to know the students, because once I get to know students as a para, I kind of know how they learn, kind of know what they need. And I think that's really helpful. And getting advice from other special education teachers. So I'm going to be honest, with the Christian faith, when I grew up, I was born as a Catholic, but I never, I did my Holy Communion. I didn't do the confirmation. I never really practiced that religion. And it wasn't until recently I started thinking of turning to the Christian faith. And I'm not sure why, honestly, but when I looked at the statement on an integration of faith and work, one thing that stood out was, we believe that God redeems and restores men and women in Christ, creating them anew for the good works He has prepared them to do. Therefore, we are confident that the work we do is part of God's calling. And I think that's part of my reason why I decided to do this program. Not only because I feel like it was maybe God's calling, but I also think because I really want to support these students to help them learn because they're going to be part of our society and we want the best for them.